Okay, so this is the video. This is how we're recording. I don't have my camera. I'm just making everything as amateur as possible so that I can actually make a video instead of having to set everything up again. And today, we're just gonna look at something simple, which is making gradients. So in today's video, we're gonna go through how to make this basic gradient, how to make this intermediary gradient, and then how to make this advanced one. Which side? So basic one's very basic. We can basically do that in like 2 minutes. So let's just get into that first. So here we have our basic set. Now, I'm not just gonna show you how to do simple gradient, we'll also explore all the other gradient options that are available. Let's start by making a rectangle, and when you make a rectangle, you want to be able to change the color. So let's go here and click under fill, we can change the color. So you can either select from this list of colors, or you can go in and pick from your colors if you have a set that you usually use. For this video, or like for that gradient, I used, was it this one? And then let's say you're using a color that you have pre-saved, you need to unlink it, and then go in and change this at the top from solid to linear. And these are all different types of gradients except for image. Image is an image, but this is a linear gradient. Now let's change this to another color. We'll go with that yellow. We can either select from down here, which is a set of document colors, or you just use a slider, pick your color. And for this video, we're gonna do no opacity. And there you have it. That's your first basic gradient. They're basically the same. Okay, maybe not exactly the same, but basically that's how you do it. Now, let's say you want to add a gradient to your writing or something specific, or like some random shape. Well, here we have the letter G. Let me just make a copy of this and drag it over. Now, if I want to add a gradient to this, it's the same process. You go here. Right now we have this purple gradient. Let me just get rid of it first, and we'll start over. Okay, now let's add a color. We change this to a gradient, linear, and let's say we want to make it another orange and red gradient. Let's go here, grab our red, and we'll go here, grab our yellow or orangish yellow. And there you have it, your basic gradient. Now, what are we gonna do when we want to make it a bit more angled towards the inside, because you want it to follow the shape? Well, what you can try with something circular like this is to change it to a radial gradient. Now let's say you want the red to be on the outside. Well, you can just turn this in the color selection panel, and now the red's on the outside and the orange is on the inside. And let's say you want to adjust it a bit, you can just move this around so that it's more centralized. And that's basically a gradient from the inside. Or let's say it's too red, you can pull this out a bit and it dims out a bit. Okay, so there, you have that. Now let's say that's not enough for you. You want it to be more focused around the shape. So what we're gonna have to do is go into the intermediary stage. Now, what is the intermediate stage? Well, it's using a plugin called BlendMe. Now, this is a really cool plugin because it basically lets you take two paths and combine them or blend them. Now, if you're used to using Illustrator, you know how this works. You select two lines and you can blend them together. But if not, let me just walk you through it. So how do you get this plugin? Well, go to the community tab. Once you're in the community tab, you just search for BlendingMe, download this. So this basically will let you combine two lines or blend two lines, and it creates a smooth pattern. This is the plugin that you need. I might as well give it a heart. So now that you have it, let's get back into our file. Before we continue, I'm gonna kill off this Google Meet because it's slowing down my computer. I'll see you guys at the end of the video. Now we can focus on how to actually make this. So we have this G. Let's make a copy of it first, just put it aside. Now, how we make the blend is we need two paths. So what you can do is you can go into the G, and if you click here on the square with the 4 circles on the corners, you can go in and you can select all the points. Now, we want to break this up, so I'm going to click Command X to cut this, and then I leave the shape by double tapping outside of this shape. Now, you're not going to see it at the start, which is fine. It's still there, don't worry. All we have to do now is add that second part of the G back, and as you can see, the G is back. It's just missing the filling. So how do we select this? Well, let's take the C part of the G, or like the outside part of the G, and add a stroke to it. Now we want to take one of the colors, so let's just find the color here. Or you can go in here and select the color that you want. It's up to you. Just choose your own color. Okay, and then for the second part of the G, let's make sure we don't select the outside. Okay, so what you do is you tap the outside, hold Shift and select everything, and then you'll only get the part that was not previously selected. Okay, now we're gonna make this part red. So let's take our red. Whoops. So, sorry, I did it in the fill. I should have done it in the stroke. My mistake. So let's go get our red. And there we have our red. Now, what we want to do is we want to use the plugin. So select both lines, go into plugins and select BlendingMe. Give it some time to open up. So on the first time you open it, it might take a minute. Just give it time. Now, once you have this console open, just create. You can choose how many you want, but I just set it to 20 or leave it at the default. Now, what you can do here is like you get this cool line pattern, but because we want a smooth gradient, what you can do is you can blur all the lines. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go down into our effects and blur all our lines. So I'm gonna blur it to maybe 24. And oh yeah, something that I forgot to do is we need to thicken the strokes. So I'm gonna thicken the strokes to, let's just do 12. Does it look smooth? Okay. Now, as you can see, the orange fades into the red and it kind of follows the shape, which is what we wanted. Now, this isn't the G shape that we want, right? It's blurry, it looks a bit messy. What we're gonna need to do is we're gonna need to crop out all the parts that we don't want. So how do we do that? Well, we take that original G that we copied and we use it as a mask. So what you wanna do is move this G all the way to the back. You can either do that by right-clicking and then, right-clicking and then sending it to the back. Or you can do Command Alt starting bracket. Yeah, this shape that you can see on the screen right now, or those keys. Now, once you have that, select everything and just hit this button here, which is like a moon. It's the mask tool. Once you hit it, it'll put that gradient into this mask, and there you have it. You have your G, which is a gradient that follows the shape of the G. Now, you can do some really interesting things with this. For example, this card that I made at the start. So how do we do this? Well, we basically use the same concept. Now, if you want to make these, use the same concept as well. But maybe we'll just walk through how to make this sort of 3D shape. So let's stay in this area. I'm gonna make a random 3D shape that we can play with. This one's gonna be more of, I guess, like a fortune cookie. Okay, so how I brought this up, I pressed P and then I started placing the points. Because this is gonna be random, it doesn't really matter what the shape is. So I'm just gonna do this really quickly and really easily. Now, if you want to edit the corners, make sure that this is selected with the square with the 4 circles on them. And now you have these different points here. To make it smooth, you can hold Command or I guess it would be Control on the Windows. And just hold Command while you tap on these circles. And it'll smoothen out and create this nice parabola for you. So just do that for each corner. And you'll get a nice smooth shape that you can make 3D after this. So now, how are we gonna turn this from, we started with 2 lines. Well, you can also do it with 2 shapes. So how did I make this? Well, first I had to understand what the gradient was gonna look like. So let me show you what I did. So we use our first stage of gradient making, which is basically just getting the colors using the basic gradient tool in Figma. Now, we'll stick to our theme of red and orange and yellow, I guess. So the first color is going to be red. The next color, whoops. So yeah, set it to linear. I almost made a mistake there. The first color is going to be red. The last color, what color should we use? Should we make it blue? We'll make it blue. Last color is going to be blue, and then the middle color can be an orange. How does that look? It's pretty nice. Okay. Now the way that this is set up, make sure that you're progressing upwards in the brightness. This isn't like a strong rule. This is just in order to make it look a bit more natural. This is what I've done with the example here. So as you can see, the orange is less bright than the blue, and then the red is just a little bit less bright than the orange. But red is a more powerful color anyway, so it overpowers the orange by default. But yeah, anyway, this is the color set that we have. So now we want to mimic this gradient and how it behaves. So we go here and we select the red for this stroke. Now, to make the gradient inwards, we're gonna copy this, so Command-C, Command-V, and shrink it a bit. Now, if you want to maintain the center while you're shrinking it, make sure you hold Alt, and also hold Shift so you maintain the shape. Now, holding Shift isn't really that important for us right now because we're not really focused on getting the perfect shape. We're gonna play with it a bit. But yeah, just try to make sure that this stays inside of the red. And yeah, that was pretty straightforward. Now, when you're making something 3D, the gradient isn't a smooth gradient. So the first one we'll do red to orange. Okay, so red to halfway point. Now, we could make it go halfway into the middle, but because 3D objects don't really behave that way, we're gonna do, it doesn't go all the way to the middle. Now let's make this a bit bigger as well so that it creates that 3D effect a bit better. So it's like, so now that we have our middle point, we make another version of this shape, and then we shrink that. And now this one we have more liberty to bring it inwards. So as you can see, this gap is basically double the gap that we had before it. So let's just make the shape a little smaller so that it fits into the orange shape. And what we're gonna do is we're going to make this one blue. Okay. Now, I think I'm gonna do white on the inside, but for now, let's just work with these, and then we'll add the white after this. So I'm gonna make the path for this. So we're gonna blend it, BlendingMe, create it, and there you have your gradient. Now I'm gonna take that last one and bring it in again. Let's go and try to make sure we grab the one at the very end. Okay, there. And let's bring that in again. And now we blend these two. So every time you blend, you have to restart the blend. I don't know why. You just have to close it and open it again. A quick way to bring up that BlendingMe plugin is to hold Command and slash, like you saw on the screen. There. Yeah, just press these keys, and you can just search BlendingMe, and it'll open up the plugin. So that's a cool, quick shortcut. Now just create this, and there we have it, our next set of blended, our next set of blends, I guess. Okay, now that we have that, let's go ahead and make the white, because I realized that there's still a big gap in the middle. So let's go fill that up. Okay, now let's edit the shape a bit so that it fits this whole thing better. I'm gonna press Command and click so that it suits the shape that I want a bit better as well. So Command and click again, Command and click, Command and click. Okay, and yeah, there we have it. So let's make this one white, just because you know, it's the last color basically on our scale. And let's do the BlendingMe for this. So I'm gonna hit Command slash again and pull up this console and create the blends. And there we have it. There's our final set of blends. Now I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna change the fill to white because it's the very last one and we want the inside of this to be white. So I'm just gonna go F. Okay. Now let's select everything, make this line extra thick so that it covers all the spaces. Like, did we cover all the spaces? Look, even this already looks 3D and we didn't even finish blending. But you know, you can still see these gaps. Maybe if it's your stylistic choice to have this, then keep it. But we want to smooth out the blend, so let's go do that. Let's smooth out the blend using effects. Let's change this effect to layer blur. Once we have our layer blur, let's set it to 12. So this is just like loose numbers. You can do what you want, but yeah, I'm just doing it loosely. Look at that. It's basically a smooth curve. Now we're gonna do the same thing that we did last time. I'm gonna take the outermost layer and then copy it. Or if you hold Alt and drag it from the layers, it'll make a copy. But then I'll go here. Oh, and make sure you have a fill on your layer before you set the mask. So I just settled fill. It doesn't matter what the fill is. Now you can just select everything and hit the little moon. Oh yeah, and you might as well close this because we don't really need it. Okay, now you see this? You see how it didn't really work that well? That's because there's still layer blur on the mask that we set. So let's go down and find that shape that we used as a mask and remove the layer blur. So I'm gonna remove this. And then I'm going to remove this thick 24 pixel stroke because we want to close it in. Okay. Is that what we want? Maybe my lines are too thick. Let's go in and change the thickness of these lines. Let's go with 12. I hope that's better. Okay, well, yeah, you can play around with it a bit. Basically, this is how we made the gradient from 3 different colors. Now you can add your own background to this so that it looks a bit more, or it looks more like it's part of something. Now, I'm gonna do a trick where you can copy the gradient or the fill onto another shape. All you have to do is click here. So you have the fill here, you just click on the edge to the left, and then you can do Command C and copy, and you can place it back and click Command V, and there you have it. Basically, you just transferred the color. But when you do this, the original color is gonna stay, so you just remove that. I don't actually want this set of colors, I just wanted to use it as the base. But let's get rid of this and drag this over. And I think we might wanna make this a bit brighter and actually make this one a little bit darker. So let's, actually no, we'll make both of them darker. We'll move this one to the red side a bit. Okay. Now, let's say you want to add a bit more separation. What you can do is you can add shadow. So that's what I'm going to do. I have my own set of shadows, which I'm just going to use because it just makes things easier. But yeah, there we go. We just added our shadow. Let's see, what do we do for this? I don't quite remember. Okay. So I added the shadow, it just wasn't as hard as this. So let's go in, we'll break my shadow, and then we'll remove some of these shadows so it's not that hard. And you just toy around with it. Reshape it, reposition the shape. And there you have it. Basically the same concept. Let me just show you what the difference is with this one. So with this one, because I had 2 like peak points in my 3D, I had to create these separate white shapes. So as you can see here, it originally started as like one whole shape, and then it got too thin, so I had to split it. Now, when I split it, I ended up having to create this like outer container to copy the blend over, and then it blends into white from here. The same case for this side as well. As you can see, the blend is contained in a shape of its own. Okay, so there we have it. We have our intermediate blend. Now, on to the exciting part. Now let me just show you what you can achieve with this blending mode, right? So I basically thought, okay, what's currently trending right now that uses gradients? We can do banking cards. So here I have a prototype, or like, I guess a mock-up of what a banking app might look like, and you have these nice gradients to show off your cards. Now, let's try and play this. While showing you this, I'm also going to show you what the downside of using this is. Would you want to see how you make this Figma loader? Because I can do it. Maybe I'll show you later. Okay, so basically, you know, you have your cards, and then you have your transactions at the bottom. Now, here's the issue with using these sort of gradients. It'll make your computer very slow, or like, it won't run optimally. Now, if you're just using one gradient, maybe it's okay. But if you have 4 different cards with gradients on them, it's gonna be a bit of a problem. but let me just show you what it looks like when we try to animate it. So as you can see, it is a bit slow. And even when you're just dragging, it's a bit slow. But they look really cool. So what I recommend is create the gradient, export it, and then put it back in. Or just use one at a time. Don't go too crazy. Yeah. Okay, so basically, how do we make this? Well, let's go back to the design file. Now, the reason this is advanced, it's a bit easier, maybe, and a lot more available for, you know, an abstract design. But what it lacks is control. It's really confusing to try to make a specific color with this. So you're just gonna have to play around with it, and you know, once you get into the file, just play around and see what you can generate. Now, we're gonna start from scratch, just because it's probably the best way for you to learn this. So I'm gonna start by making a few circles. We'll start with 4, because you know, intermediate. I mean, you're still learning. And we don't want to add too many elements, but yeah, let's have 4. You can either have circles or these like oval shapes. Let's make one of them more circular, actually. Okay, now let's give them each their own color. I'm gonna fill this one with green. Now I have my own color set. This is just to make things faster. You can just select from the color selection. This works equally as well. It's just I'm too lazy to do it. And red, okay. Now, the thing is with this is that we're gonna use an effect called background blur, and for background blur to work, you need the fill to be not 100%. Now, where that's a problem is that all my colors are at 100%, so we're gonna have to break this and then change it. So I'm gonna change this to 60. You cannot use this layer pass-through because it won't work. The background blur will only work if it's on this fill and not off of this layer fill. Okay, so we gotta break everything. I'm gonna change it to 70, break this one, change it to 50. So let's go 70 for the orange. Okay, so now we have this. Now we're gonna set our effects. We can just give them all the same effect, it doesn't matter. But we need to have 2 effects running. And one of them is going to be a layer blur, and the second one is going to be a background blur. Now for the background blur, this just depends on what you want to set. For these ones, I don't remember what the layer blur is, but let's start with 40. And you can go into the file and check it out yourself later to see if you want to really recreate something like this. Well, let's just click on it. So yeah, around 40 for the background blur, and then 130 for the layer blur. So maybe we'll just copy that, or around those numbers. We'll put the layer blur beneath. I don't know if this makes a difference. Hopefully it does, but I might just be wrong. So yeah, we got everything. Okay, the background blur is 40, we got that. Now we need to set the layer blur, so let's just go to 120. And there you have it. This is basically the shapes that you need to make this effect. Now, you gotta start pushing them together a bit so that they're overlapping and the colors don't mix that well. So look at this, you know, you have these weird random colors in between. Now, how do you go from these 4 circles to a shape with, you know, these really smooth and nice gradients? Well, you gotta select everything and you gotta put it either into a group or put it into a frame. We're gonna put it into a frame just because I think frames are nicer to control. But to do that, you can either click A and then drag a frame around everything, or what you can do is, we'll undo this, click Command Alt G, and then it makes a frame like perfectly fit for the dimensions that you have here. Yeah. So anyway, once you have this, what you're gonna want to do is just start by putting a background color behind it. Now you can either do this by clicking R and then drawing a rectangle around your blurry shapes and then hitting Command Alt back square or front square bracket. I don't know, just look at the keystrokes here and just, you know, tap this. Or you can do, you know, probably the better method is just to make a frame around this. Now for this one, you can just drag it around the shape. And what are you gonna do here? Well, we're gonna set the fill to something or another color. I like to use orange because it usually gives the best results. And right now you can't really see what's going on, but it tends to give the best results. Now, for this effect to work, you have to change the layer blending mode from pass through to hue, as this name suggests. Now, as you can see, the colors start to mess around a bit and they blend like, it's quite a nice blend. Now, I made the mistake of using red and orange when we're gonna have this red or this orange background. So let's maybe change this to another color and we can see how the other colors interact with it. So, as you can see, if we set the purple, it's a bit nicer. And you can see the smooth gradients going on here. But then in this case, our purple doesn't really do much, but it does behave as like a bit of a balancer. So now that we have the basics of this, we can start adding a bit more. And actually what you can do is you can add a gradient to this, so it's not the smooth purple. Maybe we want to go from purple to orange, right? So let's do that. Okay, maybe not the best idea because the colors don't work very well. We'll go from purple to dark purple. How about that? Okay. Now we can see this really cool transition of colors here. And all you really have to do if you want to add more is just add more. You copy the shape, hold Alt, and you can drag and the shape will duplicate itself. And just add more shapes in and you get more gradients. And this one's going to be hard to control. Like I said earlier, you just gotta try to experiment with it and see what you can come up with, because it's not gonna be very cooperative with you. You can change the colors and see how that affects the color that it generates. So the hue of the color makes a difference, but also the brightness of the color will also make a difference. So you can just play around with these colors and see what you can come up with. Okay, now because I said we'd recreate this one, let's actually recreate that one. So I'm going to change this from purple to I think it was orange, and we'll go with red. Okay, that might be way too bright for a red. Orange to yellow, let's go with that. Okay, now orange and yellow don't really work very well with green and blue, but we can do purple, and it creates, you know, quite a nice color there. This green, let's change it to you know, a bit of a blue so that it plays around a bit better with us. And We can just start moving things around and getting the colors that we want. And maybe we can add some more muted colors like red. Okay. Now, you may notice that the color isn't exactly the same. Like this one's a bit more vibrant, it just pops a bit more. So how do we get this pop? Well, we have our initial layer, so I'm going to call this blobs, which I usually do. You'll see blobs in my layer names later. And the frame we're just going to call, I guess, example 3, because that's what it is. Now, to get from blobs to like vibrant blobs, it's quite simple. All we really have to do is create another layer on top of it. And now you can give this, you can either choose a color or you can add a gradient, but I like to use orange. And then what I do is just hit overlay. And it gives you a bit more of a vibrant color. And we can call this one overlay. So, aside from this, you can also add your own gradient to that overlay, and then you have a little bit more dynamic color set. Let's actually go with the purple here. And look at that. Look at how dynamic this color shift is. Let's add roundness to this. We can add a shadow if we want. Might not be the best idea. Does it work? Nah, not really. Let's remove that. And okay, so now you're still gonna wanna be able to play around with the background. What I recommend you do is lock this, so Command Shift L, and then basically you've locked that, and you can start moving the blobs around without accidentally moving the layer around. Now, when you play with the blobs, make sure you don't accidentally take something out of the overlay or like the blobs container, because then it'll lose its effect. So, see, like that, basically. Yeah, let's make some fun shapes here. Okay, now what you can also do is, remember this square with the 4 corners? Well, you can tap that and you can adjust the shape yourself to make something a bit crazier or like a bit more controlled to like what you want. And yeah, it's just a fun time. It just takes some time to get something that, you know, looks the way you want it. But basically, overall, this is essentially how you make an advanced gradient. Now, let me give you a sneak peek as to what I've been working on that is a bit crazy. So you've seen this. So this is just a sneak preview of something I like to call Liquimorphism. But basically, if you make a gradient this way, you have the chance to make these really interesting liquid effects with the gradients. Maybe I'll show you how to do this in another video, but for now, that's how you make the gradients. And yeah, I guess go have fun with it. So let's get back into our Google Meet. Oh, I forgot to change the label of this. Sorry, guys. Okay, so that's pretty much it. That's the video. You've learned 3 different ways to make gradients. One, very basic. The second one, intermediate using BlendingMe. And the third one, just crazy hues and, you know, trying to control the different colors. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a comment and like the video. Subscribe, because I'm gonna keep trying to set meetings with myself to make videos. This is amateur quality now. It's just all about producing content for you guys, and we can learn how to use Figma a bit better together. You're not alone. There's still a lot of people here who are trying to figure things out, and I'm one of them. So I guess, yeah, I'll see you in the next video. This is the end, and goodbye. I'll hopefully be back in a few days. Change the writing on this. Subscribe. Whoops. Subscribe. Okay, let me fade into the background. Oh, now my pants.